Have you had during the pandemic, as I have, the experience of living being reduced to existing? Living is most of what fuels my writing during ordinary time. Writing can start to wither when living provides insufficient nourishment, or it can turn to itself for fuel, like a starving body consuming its own muscle for calories. And while this seems to be the primary sustenance of these machines, I've also sought out alternate sources of fuel, such as, in the form of quotations, the thoughts of other writers swimming around in my mind, and the grander life afforded by dreams, and some more direct incursions of the irrational across the border of rationality.
It comes when I can't use it.
Take care when switching to alternative fuel sources. The danger is not that an alternative fuel won't work at all, but rather that, for a time, it will work too well, propelling you to new and unfamiliar regions before inexplicably failing to work and leaving you stranded in the desert. This desert should be seen as an opportunity for the operator to rise to the challenge set by the machine, rather than a danger to be avoided, since the very purpose of creating a machine in the first place was to find a new way of using words and sentences in the service of art or art-adjacent content. But what really has all this gotten me? Aren't we long past the point at which the encounter between the lecture and the viewer should have been considered? Don't faint toward an unoccupiable position, lest it be revealed it's all been mere posturing. Does acknowledging that the operator can't ever truly know the experience of the viewer necessarily imply that the viewer's experience is outside the realm of consideration? Damn the implications and go where the sentences lead.
Perhaps it would be better then to say that those who work the edge between what can and can't be said do not escape from shame, but turn toward it and engage with it. They wrestle with it. They try to change its face. They kill it in one form so as to resurrect it in another.
Whether or how much to consider the reader or viewer is a question that has come up often in my writing and in my thinking about my writing, and I detect a split in my thinking, since on one hand, I certainly don't go out of my way to bring my readers along with me, to provide a trip over familiar terrain, or lately, even a roadmap to guide their way across the wasteland I seem intent on exploring. Yet on the other hand, I have a very difficult time justifying the resources I expend making art if the purpose isn't to find people who will encounter that art and experience what I think of as the art feeling. Oh, how I want to believe that the pursuit of truth and the pursuit of beauty are goods in themselves. That like the stylites praying on their pillars or the anchorites worshiping in their cells, the work is self-consummating, requiring no other human soul's participation to achieve fulfillment. This may just be an attempt to theorize my stubbornness.
I don't know what it was, whether it was a vacation or I was staying with someone or it was a residency. I can't remember. But it was this huge mansion thing or whatever, but it was really more like a mall. It was so big and had a lot of glass and everything too. And it was on these grounds, and there were all these animals on the grounds. And so I collected the animals or whatever, and among the animals were some dinosaurs.
Stubbornness may be rushed past, as sounding its depths would fill in only the smallest portion of the topographical map of my psyche's oceanic floor, when what I truly want is to plunge down to those depths and meet the creatures who reside there. Psyche, noun. In classical literature, Psyche was personified as a beautiful mortal with whom Cupid fell in love. Venus was jealous of Psyche's beauty and set her a series of superhuman tasks, after the last of which Psyche and Cupid were allowed to marry and Psyche was brought to heaven. She is represented in works of art as having butterfly wings or as a butterfly. The name was extended by Plato and other philosophers to the anima mundi, conceived as animating the general system of the universe, as the soul animates the individual organism. Developing a distinction between ancient Greek pneuma, breath or spirit, corresponding to Hebrew ruach, and ancient Greek psyche, soul, corresponding to Hebrew neps, terms often used interchangeably in Greek-speaking Judaism, St. Paul used psyche for the lower or merely natural life of man, shared with other animals, in contrast with the pneuma, or spirit, used as an anthropological term in relation to the divine psyche conceived as a new eschatological gift. The depths are all well and good. More than that, they're a worthy goal, but they'll be impossible to fathom if what I thought was the diving bell I would use for the purpose is actually a cage I've built to keep me locked in place.
At the end of the dream, I realized that the animals, I feel like the dogs, but I also feel like the dinosaurs were like organizing and trying and like there was some violence. They were killing each other, but they were like, there was definitely something like they were looking for us. And I'm walking around with like a kitchen knife and something else. I had two weapons and neither of them were like very good. And I'm like looking for people to tell, and then I tell someone, and I just have this vision of this like little dinosaur, I think, looking like just like staring at us through the glass. And this was with other people around, so this was like the evidence, right? Or like the thing they should make them know that it's real. But I had seen other stuff alone, like on the other side of the mall, campus thing, whatever.
It seems I've flooded the engine with worthwhile topics in the last few sentences. Among them, the encounter between the reader or viewer in these lectures, the value of creating art that seems almost willfully determined not to find a significant audience, stubbornness and its relative dominance in my personality, and the idea of a self-constructed cage locking me in place. And this phenomenon is largely due to the aleatoric method of the wave machine, but here in midstream is not the time to reconsider the machine's procedure, so I will continue what I've started and hope to remember whatever lessons I'm learning when it comes time to construct a new type of machine.
Some say practice, but practice is a word invented by cowards. The animals don't have a word for practice. A gazelle does not run for practice. He runs because he is scared or he is hungry. A bird doesn't sing for practice. She sings because she's happy or sad. So I say, store it up. The music sounds better in my head than it does in the world. When songs are pressing against my throat, then, only then, I will go down and sing for the devils, and they will cry through their parched throats.
It doesn't matter if a cannonball gets there on the fly, as long as it hits its target.
Next one, and that's all you can think about.
The problem is, to say there's a target implies a teleology I'm more than a little skeptical about.
There's this two men and two daughters, no, three daughters, I guess, maybe two. And one of the men has gone crazy, and his daughter has been lost, and she's haunting the settlement. I don't know. This is so weird.
Don't let me get started on teleology.
As a sacred manifestation, desire entails the ontological suspension of the teleological, the sustaining of a state of self-pleasuring. A numinous jouissance pushes us to our ontic frontiers. The body as world that recapitulates at the level of the microcosm the ontogenic raptures of the macrocosm.
The wave machine was inspired by, among other things, skipping stones, so it's best to let them skip. The pursuit of thoroughness may be a legitimate concern about ensuring a job has been performed properly, or it may follow a pattern of perfectionism, the purpose of which is to ensure either that nothing ever gets completed, or that one has a ready-made excuse for why a result isn't as good as it could have been. And in any given instance, it's nearly impossible to know which aspect is dominant. Perfection was never either a goal or a possibility of these lectures.
Most failures we have the tact to ignore or give a kinder name. That is because we know by instinct at what a heavy discount to put most proffered examples of failure. There was no effort of imagination in them and only private agony, where for great failure we want the utmost unrelenting imagination and the impersonal agony of knowledge searching the haven of objective form. Most failures come too easily, take too little stock of the life and forces around them, like the ordinary failure in marriage, or business, or dying, and so too much resemble the ordinary success, too solemn and scant and zestless for realization. A genuine failure comes hard and slow, and, as in a tragedy, is only fully realized at the end.
On reflection, it seems coming up with a method of escaping doubt may have been an unacknowledged goal of generating these lectures in the manner I did, by building various content-producing machines that would either force or remove certain decisions related to subject matter and form. And with the surprise appearance of the idea of stubbornness several sentences ago, I feel compelled to wonder, is stubbornness the word I use to describe the ever-present necessity to reaffirm my decision to carry on through the desert of doubt?
The solution to the problem of identity is get lost. Or as it says in the New Testament, he that findeth his own psyche shall lose it, and he that loseth his psyche for my sake shall find it.
It's only the quixotic desire to work from solid ground that causes doubt to arise, which requires stubbornness to resolve.
And so there's a reunion, and I think there's lots of sadness all around. And at the end of the dream, the daughter who's living is giving this speech, very cinematic, to her father about she when she was younger, she had seen this letter. And the speech starts off as her being mad at her father because he didn't leave the letter to her, leave it as her special thing. It was in a museum, I think, and he went to see the museum so that he could see this thing that mattered so much to her. And it starts off as this this is the problem with you, Daddy. You never let me, blah blah blah. But then it turns into but you loved me so much. You went to find this thing that mattered so much to me, so you could see it for yourself. And it's really very sweet.
Is it the stubbornness, then, that leads to the feeling of being caged, or is it the desire to be free of doubt?
Just as Trickster may acquire his trapping wits as a consequence of having been trapped, so the suffering that Trickster endures from his unrestrained appetites may lead to some consciousness in regard to those appetites.
Let the doubt exist unopposed. See how that feels.
Open is broken. There is no breakthrough without breakage. A struggle with an angel which leaves us scarred or lame. Every dream is a struggle, the possible confronting the real abruptly.
There's life to be found in the desert, regardless of any metaphors it might be employed in. And this cage that came up earlier is both imagined and admittedly self-constructed. And stubbornness is as good as the ends it might be put to use toward. So let's find the sustenance that's offered right here, slip through the bars of the cage, call stubbornness the joy of the process, and get on with it.
Poised on the threshold, he is in his world, the crepuscular, shady, mottled, ambiguous, androgynous, neither nor space of hermetic operation. That thin layer of topsoil where all these things are not yet differentiated. From this position, Hermes can move in either direction, or, more to the point, act as the agent by which others are led in either direction.
My task is to caress these words and coax them into a sentence, and then perhaps to do it again a short while later. And right there's your joy of the process, though joy doesn't mean ease, and only occasionally means pleasure, and the process won't always yield either truth or beauty.
Are there, in the common locution, felt realities too deep for words? The analogy of music and of the invention of melody, about which so very little is known, does allow the notion of forms of thought or energized significance that are, in some highly abstract, yet also physical mode, relations between levels or centers of internal tension. One can imagine psychophysical consonances or dissonances of inner pitch creating a condition of unbalance, of overloading or short circuit that can only be resolved through an expressive, performative act. Is there, as is felt in dreams and the penumbra of uncertain waking, a syntax of shape, color, motion, spatial relations that is somehow located in the mind but lies further than words? Do we experience it when we grope for a word?
Yield is an intriguing word in my previous sentence, with its dual senses of agricultural production and surrender. Yield, verb. Roman numeral 1, to pay, repay, requite. Definition 2a, to give as due or of right, or as demanded or required. To render, service, obedience, account, reward, thanks, etc. Now somewhat archaic. Roman numeral 2, to give or put forth, produce, furnish, exhibit. Definition 8a, to give forth from its own substance by a natural process, or in return for cultivation or labor. To produce, bear, generate, fruit, seed, vegetation, minerals, etc. To put forth, a bud, shoot, etc. To bring forth, give birth to, bear, offspring. Now chiefly archaic or poetic. Roman numeral 3, to surrender, give way, submit. Definition 14a, to hand over, give up, relinquish possession of, surrender, resign, archaic or poetic. A, in material sense, especially of surrendering a military position or forces to an enemy. Definition 14c, to yield up the ghost, soul, breath, life, spirit, to give up the ghost, die, expire, archaic. Sometimes the words know best what should be said.
And then the dream ends, and they're in this. The father and daughter are in this. I think museum, a different museum, And the ghost daughter starts dressing and the ghost daughter's been a presence in the dream. And the other father is like crazy and haunted. And the ghost daughter like starts dressing the other father, not the haunted father. He's like talking to his daughter in this thing, and somehow the ghost daughter is dressing him. And you watching and you're like, oh no, this is gonna be so bad. Dressing him as like her, but the clothes are all like black and red, like almost lacy, kind of thick Victorian kind of dresses. It's just like layering it on him.
The thing about words is, I don't work closely with them because they always do just what they're told, but because on occasion they don't. The thing about writers is, sometimes we need to be reminded why we work closely with words.
Language is always an Old Testament to be made new, rules to be broken, dead metaphor to be made alive, literal meaning to be made symbolical, oldness of letter to be made new by the Spirit. The Creator Spirit stands in the grave, in the midden heap, the dunghill of culture, breaking the seal of familiarity, breaking the cake of custom, rolling the stone from the sepulchre, giving the dead metaphor new life.
These poor words are already so mistreated, bullied by the lawyers, and abused by the business people.
And then the haunted father comes in, and he starts like beating the crap out of the other father in front of the daughter. And I woke up, but it didn't look good. It looked like it was going to end tragically.
Whenever doubt arises, since there are no better options, return to the prima materia, focus on the words, listen to what they have to say, and try to help them arrange themselves in the best possible order.